Welcome to today's explainer class. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here because today we are going to dive deep into the fundamental rules of electric current and Ohm's law. If you've ever found yourself wondering exactly how the electricity in your walls powers your everyday life or why certain wires get suspiciously hot, you are definitely in the right place. So put on your physics teacher hats with me because we're going to break down these invisible forces into concepts that are not only easy to grasp, but genuinely fascinating.
Here's our syllabus for today. We've got 5 main topics. First, the shocking history of electricity. Second, the water pipe analogy. Third, the microscopic pinball machine. Fourth, math and real-world labs. And finally, number 5, when the law breaks.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the shocking history of electricity. So let's start with a bit of a bang, shall we? I want you to put your Socratic hats on for a second. Imagine it's the year 1781. There are no digital multimeters anywhere, no LCD screens, nothing. So how on earth did a scientist, like, say, Henry Cavendish, actually measure the flow of electric current without any of those modern tools? Just take a second to picture that laboratory setup in your head.
Well, the answer is, honestly, it's equal parts brilliant and absolutely terrifying. Henry Cavendish literally shocked his own body to feel the current. No joke. He would complete the circuit with his bare hands and gauge what he called the velocity of the current against the degree of electrification. How? Literally just by noting how incredibly strong the physical shock felt to him. It's wild, right? It's a fantastic reminder of the actual physical suffering that went into discovering these fundamental laws we just take for granted today.
Fast forward a bit to 1827. George Simon Ohm finally brings some actual rigorous math to the table. He brilliantly used a thermocouple to get a stable voltage source, and he figured out the exact proportional relationship between voltage, current, and resistance. But was he celebrated as a genius? Oh, definitely not. The German educational system completely dismissed him as a heretic. They actually called his mathematically proven work a web of naked fancies. Yeah, a web of naked fancies. They firmly believed scientific truths should be deduced by pure reasoning, not messy hands-on experiments. It literally took over a decade for his genius to be widely accepted. But hey, thankfully, we recognize that genius now.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the water pipe analogy.
To ground all these invisible electrical concepts in everyday reality, we need to meet the 3 main characters of our lesson. First up, voltage, which is your driving force, or potential difference. Second, current, which is the actual flow of that electric charge. And third, resistance, which is, well, exactly what it sounds like. It's the strict opposition to that flow.
Now, if you can picture a standard garden hose, you can easily understand Ohm's law. In this hydraulic analogy, voltage is essentially the water pressure pushing from the tap. Current is your volume flow rate, the actual amount of water pouring out of the hose over a given time. And the resistor? That's a constricted pipe. I want you to vividly imagine just squeezing that garden hose tightly with your hand. The pressure, the voltage, at the tap might remain exactly the same, but by increasing the resistance with your hand, you're directly reducing the current of water that can flow out. Make sense, right?
All right, let's go deeper. Section 3, the microscopic pinball machine.
Let's zoom way in to see what's actually happening on an atomic level inside that wire when you apply voltage. Back in 1900, Paul Drude proposed a model that finally gave us a classical scientific explanation for Ohm's law. In the Drude model, a solid conductor is made up of a stationary lattice of heavy atoms, or ions. The conduction electrons, they're just constantly moving around at random. When you apply a voltage, it creates an electric field that accelerates those electrons in one specific direction. But it's not a straight shot. It is a chaotic game of microscopic pinball. These electrons are constantly colliding with those heavy stationary ions, scattering and bouncing all over the place. And that scattering, that is exactly what creates resistance and generates heat.
And this perfectly captures that microscopic behavior for different metals, plotting their conductivity against their electron density. Look at how metals like silver, copper, and gold sit way high up on the conductivity scale, both at 273 Kelvin and 77 Kelvin. What's super interesting here is that it shows conductivity isn't just about having a ton of electrons. It's really about how easily those electrons can drift through that atomic pinball machine at different temperatures.
Which brilliantly illustrates our advanced class formula, the microscopic Ohm's law. It's written out as J equals sigma E. So J is the current density, E is the electric field, and that little sigma symbol, that's the material's conductivity. Essentially, this equation tells us that the current density at any specific location inside the material is directly proportional to the electric field pushing it, multiplied by how inherently conductive that specific material is. It's literally the exact same concept as V equals IR, we're just looking at it at the granular atomic level.
Now, let's take this out of the theoretical realm. Section 4, Math and Real-World Labs.
Let's talk about how this theory translates into the practical math and real-world lab skills that electrical engineers use every single day. If we were standing in a physical lab right now, we would verify Ohm's law experimentally. You'd set up a breadboard, pop in a resistor, and connect your power source. Then, you'd grab a digital multimeter to take your readings. The absolutely crucial point to remember here is that to measure current, your multimeter must be connected in series with the resistor. You have to force the electricity to flow entirely through your meter. As you slowly turn up the voltage from your power supply, you will see the current rise proportionally right there on the screen. It's just a really beautiful immediate validation of a 200-year-old law.
Let's actually put some real numbers to this using the classic formula, V equals IR. Say you have a household subwoofer that needs 110 volts to push a current of 5.5 amps. Using our formula triangle, resistance equals voltage divided by current, so 110 divided by 5.5 gives us a resistance of 20 ohms for that subwoofer's coil. Pretty simple, right? Or take a hairdryer plugged into a standard 120-volt circuit. If it has a resistance of 25 ohms, current equals voltage divided by resistance. So 120 divided by 25 means that hairdryer is pulling exactly 4.8 amps of current.
Now, this math isn't just for passing physics exams, it's literally what keeps your house from catching fire. Ohm's law dictates exactly how we size electrical fuses. If the current value gets too large, we need a fuse that will intentionally break, sacrificing itself to prevent the whole circuit from being damaged or, exploding. We also use this exact law to determine the power consumption of those high-resistance metal coils in your space heater, to control the speeds of your ceiling fans by shifting resistance, and to properly size the resistors inside your electric kettles. It's everywhere.
Which brings us to our final topic today. Section 5, When the Law Breaks.
As any good physics teacher will tell you, science is nuanced, and things can get, well, a little complicated. You see, Ohm's law is an empirical law. It's a generalization that works beautifully for most metals, but it's not a universal law of nature like gravity. Because of this, we divide the electronic world into ohmic and non-ohmic devices. True ohmic devices have a beautifully linear IV curve. Their resistance stays perfectly constant no matter what the voltage does. But non-ohmic devices, they have a non-linear curve. Their resistance wildly changes depending on the voltage and current flowing through them. So that straight line math we just did a minute ago completely falls apart.
So where exactly does this happen? Diodes are a perfect example. A PN junction diode is a unilateral element. It essentially only lets current flow in one single direction, and its current absolutely does not increase linearly with voltage. Non-linear thyristors and electric arcs also totally defy Ohm's basic proportionality. And here's a really fascinating one, joule heating. Even in a standard basic copper wire, if the current gets too high, the wire heats up. And because a change in temperature actually changes a metal's resistivity, the resistance itself starts to change as the wire gets hotter. It's a constant feedback loop.
Which brings us to the end of our lesson today. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. If a foundational rule like Ohm's law has strict limits and is literally meant to be broken by modern components like diodes and transistors, what other incredible electrical mysteries and wild nonlinear behaviors are hiding inside the smartphones, computers, and electric cars that we use every single day? Something to think about the next time you plug a charger into the wall. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Class dismissed.